What's up, agents, and welcome back to another Division video. The TU22 Year 6 Season 2 patch notes have just gone live on the Trello, obviously for the PTS that is coming tomorrow. I haven't even clicked on them yet. I've gone straight into the video. I want this to be like a surprise react type video. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Definitely comment and let me know what you think down below. Let's have a look. So the patch size without the PTS is 97 gig. If you've got a PTS already, 18 gig. It starts Friday the 20th at 1 PM CEST and it ends on Monday the 23rd at 1 PM CEST. So here we go. Seasons 2.0, the seasonal journey. The new seasonal journey introduces a structured progression system with 7 sequential missions, each containing 8 objectives. It's designed to guide players through the early stages of each new season, offering a mix of challenges and goals to introduce key mechanics available from level 1. Even new players can jump straight into the current season's content. I must admit, they're making the game very new user friendly. The entire seasonal journey unlocks at the start of the season. As you complete each mission and objective, you'll earn various rewards, including season XP, season pass, progression boosting items, that's interesting, resources, and active modifiers. That's definitely the most interesting one. Completing the entire journey will grant you a unique cosmetic item. All right, so that's interesting. That is definitely interesting. And I think we're going to need to just refresh, because as I've done that, I've seen that they've added more to the bottom. So we'll keep scrolling down, and maybe when we get to the bottom, we'll have another look. All right, so let's just keep going. So seasonal modifiers. The seasonal modifiers are central to each season's unique gameplay, spicing up the usual rules and mechanics of the game. There are 4 distinct types of modifiers, each playing a critical role in shaping the player's experience. So we have got global modifiers, active modifiers, passive modifiers, and hostile modifiers. And if you want to see the ones that we saw in the live stream, I snipped them all out very quickly and I made a video just before this. Be sure to go and check that out. I'll link it down below as well. The global modifiers are set as the overall theme of the season and are active all the time while the system is enabled, affecting those in the core gameplay loop. In the first season, the theme is range. The global modifier, point break, grants a bonus damage depending on the distance you are from the enemies. Active modifiers function like ultimate abilities, giving your character a short burst of power. Players can choose from a selection of active modifiers, but only one can be equipped at a time. For the first season, they manipulate the range on the zones set by the global modifier. And then there's passive modifiers. These work in conjunction with the global modifier, adding extra bonuses. Players can equip up to 3 passive modifiers simultaneously. In the first season, these modifiers provide additional benefits based on the range of zones you are from the global modifier. The hostile modifiers, we didn't get to see what these were. The only one we did get to see was one where Yannick was shooting, and because he wasn't at the right range, he was taking damage. But as players progress through the season, enemies will gradually gain new abilities linked to the specific enemy types, forcing you to use the global, passive, and active modifiers strategically to counter them. The global modifier system can be disabled at any time and is mutually exclusive with the global events, allowing players to control how they engage with seasonal challenges. Meaning you can have them both. You can have the seasonal stuff on, you can have global events on and all, but you can't mix and match global events with it. Then we got to look at priority objectives. The priority objective system offers a variety of short-term objectives, enhancing the way players can farm for items and resources in the game. The priority objective system becomes available upon reaching level 30. And what we saw within this, there was rewards that actually were the modifiers. Players can choose from 3 objectives, selecting one based on limited information, such as duration, reward category, and mission type. Once the selection is made, it's locked in, and the full details of the objective and its reward will be revealed. If none of the objectives appeal to the player, the system allows for rerolls. Players can earn reroll points by completing the priority objectives, so you are going to be stuck with your first ones, which will maximize 3 rerolls stored at any time. There's no time limit to the number of priority objectives the players can complete, and rewards includes XP, season pass XP, items, resources, and passive modifier unlocks. And I'm definitely interested if we got exotics. Then they showed us the Manhunt Scouts. Manhunt Scouts is a new system that drives the game's narrative by requiring players to complete weekly activities that reward them with equipment, XP, materials, and most importantly, new collectibles. Each week, players can tackle a scout, which consists of 3 different activities. These activities will vary, and players must solve a small riddle to complete each one. They weren't guided at all. Activities should be completed in order, and once all 3 are finished, the players will receive the scout reward. All activities in a scout are completed, players will receive a bigger reward, including a unique collectible. However, the new scouts cannot be accessed until the current one is completed. By the end of the season, completing all scouts unlocks the climax manhunt mission, and finishing that unlocks the master climax mission, which is much, much harder. A little thing to say here, there was 14 weeks worth as well, not just the 5 that we get now. So here we go, new gear. Swap speed bonus 30%, the Legatus. 2-piece, 50% optimal range. 3-piece, 15% weapon damage. I guess it's just regular. But it comes with named gear pieces. The named backpack, Vigil. Perfect versatile. Amplifies total weapon damage for 10 seconds when swapping between your primary and secondary if they are different. 45% to enemies within 15 meters for shotguns and SMGs. For PvP, 35% within 15 meters. 45% for enemies further than 25 meters for rifles and MMRs. For PvP, that's reduced to 35, so we're looking at a 10% decrease for PvP for them 2 types. And then 20% for enemies within 15 to 25 meters for LMGs and ARs. I think that's a little bit low still, but I guess we'll see. And then a new named mask with 50% optimal range. Wow. So you can get 100% optimal range from this gear. That's going to be interesting. That is going to be interesting. I wonder if they're red or yellow or blue core types. They never tell us. Then there's a new gear set, the Virtuoso. Sounds like a coffee that I have. 2-piece gives 15% weapon handling and 15% mag size. So more mag size stats. 3-piece gives 15% weapon damage. 4-piece is a brand new talent called Symphony. Killing an enemy further than 30 meters will provide 30% weapon damage to shotguns, SMGs, and pistols. That's going to be hard though, 30 meters. But it does play into the new system that they put in, right? That's all about range. So I guess this is why we're going to get a gear set every season that applies to whatever the global modifier is at the time. 15% weapon damage to ARs and LMGs, and 25% bonus armor for 10 seconds. I mean, ARs and LMGs are going to love that. They're going to absolutely love that. Maybe pistols too, actually. Killing an enemy within 30 meters. Within 30 meters provides 30% weapon damage to marksman rifles and rifles. Wow, that is nice. 15% weapon damage to ARs and LMGs. 30% to headshot damage for 10 seconds. So hang on, right? So 15% is flat no matter what range you are in. But if you're within 30 meters, you get a 30% extra. I mean, that is nice. That could be really nice. That could be really, really nice. I actually like the sound of this. You could use this with assault rifles, LMGs. Yeah, everything. So that's definitely interesting to see. Intermittently killing enemies from both ranges will build up stacks. At 4 stacks, all bonuses are doubled and triggered at the same time for 10 seconds. So, along with the new seasonal event that we've got, as long as you play to the marker, play to the seasonal event, and use this gear set, you could be insanely powerful. I do hope, though, that they keep the range reticle after this, global events go away, right? The new seasonal events goes away, because we're still going to have the gear set and we're still going to need to know our ranges. Alright, I thought it was crazy already, but if you use the chest bonus, you get to double the weapon damage again. And it decreases the stack from 4 to 3. I'm not sure the backpack bonus is worth it. 4 to 2 would have been nice, but yeah, definitely interested to try this out. Seems like it could be insanely powerful. A new exotic holster counter. Swapping weapons will give you the following groups of bonuses one by one in order. 1, 20% rate of fire and 20% weapon damage. 50% magazine size and 50% reload speed. The bonuses will remain active for 8 seconds or until next weapon swap. Swapping to your sidearm does not trigger the next set of group bonuses. Wowzers. Again, seems very, very good. New weapons and talents. So we're getting a brand new exotic foul. Killing an enemy will apply a mark on an enemy within 20 meters of it. Multiple marks can be applied on the same enemy. Deal 15% amp damage to marked enemies. Sounds really, really nice, especially for solo play. It comes with an extra 20 rounds in the mag, so I guess that puts it at, what, 50? Because it's a foul. 5% crit damage, muzzle, 5% optic chance, that's good. And 10% weapon handling. Yeah, very nice. Definitely interested to try that out. PvP is going to love that, I think. Let's see what that's going to be like. Named weapon and talents. In fact, they'll probably hate it because it seems powerful, but you know what I mean. New named weapons and talents. Precision strike, weapon talent. Killing enemies further than 20 meters builds up stacks. The max stack is 3. Hitting an enemy within 20 meters then uses up all the stacks and provides 20 amp damage per stack to enemies within 20 meters for 5 seconds. Okay, that'd be interesting. Definitely playing on the range. And then we get the perfect version, which deals 35 amp. Yeah, definitely need to try that out. Could be crazy. Sledgehammer has had a rework. Dealing damage with a grenade applies mark on a target. Targets with marks will take 30% more damage to armor from the agent that applied the mark. Okay, so it can't be used as a group buff anymore. And minus 20% movement speed disappears after 10 seconds. So yeah, so same buff but solo only now. The mosquito's getting another change. Hitting an enemy applies a stack, so that's the same. Stacks are shared between players, so that's the same. There seems to be a gap there at 5, which is weird, but whatever. At 5 stacks, an enemy will forcefully target the last player to apply a stack for 5 seconds and take 40% more damage to armor. Ooh, from all sources. That sounds nice. Really nice. Stacks deplete after 5 seconds. Wow, that sounds really nice. So basically the mosquito has now replaced Sledgehammer. Alright, so let's copy this image because I'm going to use it for me thing, but we're going to refresh the screen because they added even more. Because remember, Yannick said they touched all the gear. So I'm guessing at the bottom now, it's not there. Ah, they've been added separately. So we've got PTS Y6 Phase 1, balancing for weapons and gear. Balancing for weapons and talents. Then we've got gear. Alright, so let's go in with the weapons. Whoa, we've got a buff and a nerf. With the introduction of Seasons 2.0, which brings new features like modifiers, scouts, project, priority objectives, and seasonal journey, we're taking a fresh approach to balancing, aiming to give different playstyles and more distinct personalities. This update will address a wide range of elements, including various weapon categories, exotics, weapons and gear, weapon mods, talents, and gear sets. The core stats section in the inventory preview of the weapon has been updated, also to show headshot damage and optimal range. What? The core stats section in the inventory preview? Oh, right, okay, that's fine. The stats, so we're getting more, from the menu, we'll get to see more. The reload stat in the weapon handling section of the inventory preview of a weapon has now been updated to showcase 2 decimals. Alright, okay, so they've gone down 2 decimals rather than just rounding up, but they never did, but I guess so we always see it. So, I'm seeing more red, but not so much. It's fairly 50-50. So this is fairly interesting. I will do a separate video for this because there's a lot of changes here. ACR has been nuked a little bit, so it's hard without running the stats. Optimal range has changed lower on a lot of assault rifles. Reload speed's increased. Mag size has gone up on an AUG, down on an F2000, down on a Honey Badger, down on a CETA. And then we've got rate of fire increases on FAL. Oh, the FAL got a rate of fire increase. Don't forget, we also got the new exotic coming. Honey Badger, PDR. It's the same. Sorry, the P416 got a rate of fire increase. Definitely interested to see how that is now. But it did take a smacking damage. So, you know, where it says double green here, the Honey Badger got double buff. That's kind of nice. So definitely interested to look at that in more numbers. We'll definitely get out the spreadsheets after this video. Then we've got SMGs. No mention of exotics as of yet, how they've been changed, because obviously like the 416 that would affect the Eagle Bearer perhaps and things like that. SMGs have taken a fairly big hit in damage, but then RPMs for some have gone up. SMG 9, you know, they have taken a buff here, the P90, but optimal range has gone up on these as well, but damage across the board's been lowered. LMGs have taken a buff by the look of it with damage. RPK has taken a bit of a sting from rate of fire, but had damage buff, so that could be nice. But again, the mag size has been lowered. Rifles, there was a bit of a note here. The 1886 and any weapon based on it no longer deal reduced damage to arms and legs. I didn't even know that was a thing. Did you guys? So this is just rifles. AKM, UIC, M16, all and M1A, all getting buffs. M1A getting a buff. Significant by the looks of it as well, so that sounds really good for that. Scar's getting a buff. Bunch of ones we don't use are all getting nerfs, so we still won't use them. Marksman rifles getting buffs. G28 really needed one, that's getting a huge buff. M44 is getting a buff, but everything else, 308 is getting a nerf. M700 is getting a nerf. Model 700 is getting a nerf. That's unfortunate. Shotgun's getting buffed throughout, apart from these ones. Super 90, oof, looks like it's getting a huge nerf. My favorite shotgun. Bye. 612 as well. Will that affect Loving Exotic? I guess we'll see. Pistols a huge damage buff across the board. Huge. Apart from the D50 getting smacked, but everything else is getting a huge buff from damage. Reload speed's getting hurt though. The Magnum though, and I believe that's the Harvest, is getting a buff. So that'll definitely be interesting to see. Some magazine mods are all... I'm not going to go through these because this is crazy. But AC... So some of these guns effectively are... It's going to be hard to tell, right? Because some of these guns will take these mods. So they might have been nerfed up here, but then buffed down here. So there's quite a lot here of the ones that we don't generally use. Optimized, you know, inventory 5.56 mag, getting a huge optimal range buff. Like these are ones that we don't tend to use, but maybe that will, you know. Like this one here, the flash hider. So stuff for pistols and things like that. The suppressor and things like that are getting huge accuracy buffs. Maybe they'll be used, but I'll put I'll put the link for this down below in the comments. I'm not going through all them. That seems pretty wild. Underbarrels, again, ones that we don't tend to use in the meta, are getting some buffs. Talents. Perfect Entrench is being changed. So if you are below 30% armor, headshots recover 20% or 30% for the perfect version. Cooldown is now every 1 second for the perfect version. So that's pretty good. That's pretty good for survivability. Gunslinger, weapon swapping increases total weapon damage by 23% for 5 seconds. It's getting a 3% buff. Kinetic Momentum's getting a buff to 1.5% skill damage. Very nice indeed. That's already a great buff. Obliterate's getting a nerf. Critical hits increase total weapon damage by 1% for 5 seconds, but only now stacks up to 17 times. Ouch. Ouch. That's yeah, that's horrible. That is horrible. Obliterate is horrible. Maybe just Spotter from now on. Maybe that's going to change. I guess we'll see. Perfect Overwatch is getting skill damage buff to 12 to 14. Spark is getting a buff. That's not had a change in a long time. Alright, okay, so it's only the perfect version is getting a buff. Damaging an enemy increases. Damaging an enemy with a skill increases total weapon damage by 50%. Damaging an enemy with a skill increases total weapon damage by 15% for 15 seconds. But now it's saying 15 and 18 for 15 seconds. That's strange. Something's missing here. So we need to check that one out. Safeguard is going up to 130%. Hollow Man's getting 4% extra health damage. Motherly Love, 25% skill health. Firm Handshake is getting 16% status effects. Claws Out is getting 500% melee damage and 11% pistol damage rather than 9. Seems strange. Picaro's holster is getting nerfed 5%. Ouch. So a lot of the loved and used pieces in current meta are getting hurt here currently. But like they said, they're trying to bring things up and down to even the score. So although it sounds like harsh because of some of the current meta is being damaged, with the other things coming up, it might bring, more viability across the board, right? Perfectly Accurate is being changed to 80% from 50. Perfect Allegro's going up to 22%. Get your invisible hands out. That could be very good now. Definitely, it's a shame we don't have the regular version anymore, but definitely want to check that out. Bread Basket's getting increased to 55% and 70 from 35 and 50. That's pretty big as well. 10% buff with Eyeless. Fast Hand is getting a nerf. Critical hits add a stack of 3%, 5% for the perfect one. That hurts a little bit. That's rough. Killer. Oh, hang on. Killer. Bring back my Dark Winter because it's getting a 90% critical hit damage buff. That's crazy. That is crazy. Even though it took a nerf with the damage on the gun itself, the Dark Winter could be nuts now. Ignitist is getting a buff, but we don't really use this because it's too horrible to activate. Optimist, weapon damage is increased by 3.5% for every 10% ammo missing from the magazine. Right, so it's had a 0.5 boost in both categories. That's nice. Good talent. Perfectly Optimized, weapon handling has been pumped 10%. Perpetuation, headshots grant 75% status effect damage rather than 50. That's great for skill builds. Ranger has had its amp damage for the perfect version. So amp damage for 2% every 4. Oh no, for the range has been cut down. So yeah, I mean they can be closer for get more damage. Reformation, headshots grant 60% and 80% skill repair now. That's a huge buff. Sadist, amp. Wow. Sadist has been amp damage from 20 to 30 and 25 to 35 for bleeding enemies. This is going to be such a good backpack now. Even more so than what it already is. Thunderstrike has been buffed by 10% here and there, but we don't use it because it's not very good. Vindictive, killing an enemy with a status effect applies grants 16% or 21% critical hit chance and 16%, 21% critical hit damage. Big buffs there as well. So yeah, Vindictive could be really good. Measured has been buffed by 5% to fire and yep, across the board. So Measured's already good already. Could be better. On Empty has been buffed, but I mean, it's pretty meh. Outsider has been buffed again, but pretty meh. Behind You has been amped up to 20% when it got nerfed last time. Strange, but I still don't think it's good enough. Brazen has had a buff, which is already pretty good, so definitely worth checking this out by 0.5% on the amp damage. Perfect Jazz Hands has had a buff here, but again, I don't think too many people use it. Pumped Up has had a small buff by 0.2%, or a whole 1% for the perfect version. So do come back. I will run the numbers and do the spreadsheets for all the guns. Let's move on to the next page. So that was balancing weapons and talents. Let's just F5, make sure it's not been weapons and talents. All right, so let's have a look here. So Hardwired is getting a buff to every 10 seconds rather than 20. And then to 5 seconds if you use the backpack. Won't a change, no changes in PvP. Hardwired is going to be amazing. Absolutely amazing. Aegis is getting a 4-piece buff by 1%. I don't think that's a game changer, but we'll try it out. Heartbreaker is getting a buff. Hello, Heartbreaker. By 0.3%. So definitely worth taking a look at this now. Yeah, that's definitely worth taking a look at. Aces and Eights is getting a buff. And also usable by rifles. Holy moly, that could be really good. That could be really, really, really good. All right, so everything's staying the same damage-wise. It's just they're just adding rifles to it. Impressive. The change that has been needed for such a long time. Breaking Point's getting a buff from 4 to 7.2 for the weapon damage bonus. Negotiators is getting a buff. Increased crowd control damage to additional marked enemies from 60% to 112%. Very nice. Oh no, from 60 to 112, and it was 60 to 100 before. Wow, that is great. That is very great. That is really good. Ongoing directive, increase hollow point ammo damage amp from 20 to 50%. Really nice. Ongoing directive is really good now. Striker's getting a nerf. Striker's getting a nerf. Increases total weapon damage gained per stack from 0.65 to 0.85. Yeah, okay. So it's getting a 0.15% nerf. Probably still going to be top tier. Just thinking about it. Probably still going to be top tier. But it will definitely be interesting to see how these two above compete. I don't think that the Heartbreaker buff would be enough to compete. But ongoing directive buff is huge. It's huge. 15% extra amp damage. That's bigger than Glass Cannon. It's definitely interested in trying that. Umbra's getting a buff. While in cover, gain 10 stacks per second, up to 50. Each stack will give 1.2% critical hit damage and increase the RPM by 0.4%. So a 0.1 RPM buff and a 0.2 critical hit damage buff. Don't affect PvP. Great. Absolutely great. Alright, brand sets. Alps is getting a nerf for the repair skills. Seems odd. China Light is getting extra status effects. Electric is getting status effects nerfed. Empress is getting skill efficiency cut in half. That hurts a lot. Murakami is getting double nerfed, but with a little bit of an increase. The skill damage is being brought right down. So this is really going to affect PvP. R&H is R&K is getting a nerf and nobody uses it. It's even worse now. I guess this is meant to say Wyvern is getting skill damage across the board being brought right down. Status effects a little bit of a buff there, tiny amounts. 511 is getting a buff. I don't think anyone would use it. Bellstone is getting an incoming repairs buff. Again, nothing to be too worried about. Hannah Yu with a 5% damage buff at the end. Again, nothing to be worried about there. So again, like with the previous changes, nothing too much to be worried about there. Golan gear status effects down, nothing to be too worried about. HG a nerf here, a tiny amount. Tiny amount. I'm glad that's only a small amount. Status effects here buff. They're not really used though. Lengmo change here. Again, nothing too horrifying. Uzina's getting some extra Hasbro. That could be nice. Jarl's getting some extra weapon damage with the buff for the Hollow Man as well. That could be very nice. Araldi is getting a 2% headshot nerf. Seska is getting a chance nerf by 3.5%. That's going to destroy builds. That's going to bring all builds down with the mods as well. You might have to slot in an extra crit chance mod in some of your builds now, or an extra stat. But it has pro buff. Grupo, again, the same. Slight down in damage. Providence, again, slight down in damage, but a big critical hit chance nerf. 3.5% is a significant amount, I think. It could make or break needing an extra crit chance mod in the gear or not. And Sokolov has had a couple of percent knocked off as well. Alright, so they're not terrible. Bighorn is getting a buff. Oh, there's reds on the St. Elmo engine. So when scoped in, switches to semi-automatic mode, dealing 450% weapon damage with each shot. Headshots grant 6%. So before, it was still 450%, but they've upped it by 2% for headshots. That's huge. It's getting 40% headshot damage mod in there. It was only 30 before. Mag is now 20% rather than 10%. And the reloads, the Bighorn's going to be great. Oh, I'm seeing Eagle Bearer buffs as well. The Bighorn's going to be really good. St. Elmo's engine. So it's had the crit damage brought down. So optics, the crit damage has been down 5%. It still says 30 rounds. But didn't we see that it had been restricted in the live video? So we need to check that out. Muzzle has had the crit chance brought down as well. So the crit chance and crit damage have been brought down. Yeah, that's unfortunate. But I guess we'll see. Oh yeah, the extra minus 10 rounds. Yeah, rough. I guess we'll see where that sits now. Probably won't sit too high. But we'll have to wait and see if the damage numbers get affected by it or not. Eagle Bearer though. So before, it's now got optics. It's now 15% critical hit chance mod in there. Same mag, but then a 5% boost in critical hit damage. Really nice for the Eagle Bearer. Definitely need to check that out. Chameleon's had a buff. Now hitting 65 body shots grants 90% weapon damage. So they've sliced 10 off it, and they've sliced 10 off the legs. That's hopefully a pointing in the right direction. That gun could be really, really good if we could keep the stats up more easily. So doing this is definitely a pointing in the right direction. I just wonder if it's enough. Lady Death's had a buff. So an extra 15%, extra 5% crit chance, which is nice. And an extra 5% critical hit damage. Wow. Hitting crit chance, cap with that, very easy. Plus, in fact, it kind of replaces the nerfs, even like the Seska and the Grupo that we had before. So very even for some reason. The Backfire has now had a buff. The Backfire buff is pretty crazy. An extra 2% on critical hit damage. It was 1 before, so they've doubled that. And the stacks last for 10 seconds, but they are capped to 100. Alright, okay, so you just get to the damage cap way quicker than what you did previously, which is nice. An extra... The Optic has had a 10% crit chance buff. Wow. Wow. 20 rounds still, and then a buff in the critical hit damage as well by the same. That's crazy good. Chatterbox is getting a buff. Oh no, Ouroboros, and I see red. Chatterbox is getting a buff. When you reload, the rate of fire is increased by 25% for each enemy within 15 meters. Before, it was only 20, so a 5% buff, making it probably the best SMG in the game. Because they're also giving it a buff on the mod by 10% critical hit damage. I think the Chatterbox is going to outdo the Ouroboros. because they've taken 10 rounds off it and took 10% off the rate of fire. Means situational wise, Chatterbox could be the best. It was already very close. Iron Lung has had a buff. The optic is now critical hit chance rather than critical hit damage. And the underbarrel is... That's got to be a typo, right? So they basically... I don't know what that... Yeah, maybe not. So they could change it to 10% crit chance and remove 10% crit damage. But then they've added critical hit damage at the bottom, basically giving it a 10% crit chance buff. But they've taken 10% damage off it as well. Ugh. The blue screen has had a buff of reload speed. Okay, fair enough. And also a 10% rate of fire buff as well. So that's just got even better. The Bullet King's getting a buff. 10% weapon damage, really nice. 15% crit chance on the muzzle. And some extra stability. Very nice indeed. Ruthless Merciless is getting a buff. Oh, yes. So they've buffed the accuracy by 5%, hopefully making it not as much of a wild animal. Reload speed has stayed the same. They've added 5% on the stability as well. And 5% on the weapon handling. I cannot wait to try this. Vindicator's had a buff, but I mean, it still suffers from the same problem. Oh, Scorpio has taken a nerf. Poison. Oh, it's only taken a PvP nerf. Right, okay. Yeah, it looks like it's only PvP. Maybe. Maybe not. Maybe they've increased this one to 10 shots. And the other bits have changed. Okay, interesting. Catharsis has now got a buff to 1.5%. I mean, that's kind of nice for people that use it. Updated loot pool. Oh, okay. In TU22, a fresh batch of named weapons will be added to the loot pool for missions and main bosses. Here's what you need to know. The original loot tables will remain unchanged, but will now include additional opportunities to obtain newly added items. While these items will have a higher drop rate, they are not guaranteed rewards and may still require multiple attempts to acquire. The likelihood of these weapons dropping will increase with the difficulty level of the mission. These new loot drop chances will be exclusively available for all characters at level 40 and above. Importantly, these changes will not apply to invaded missions and are limited to the regular version. Alright, okay, so you can target farm named weapons a bit easier. So I guess they'll let us know with the new ones at the start of each season, because these are all old ones for the moment. Known issues, which we don't really need to worry about. Yeah, so it's fine for the PTS. What is this? Oh, that was the file, right? Yeah, okay. Yeah, and that is it. That is our lot. That is our lot. We went through all this before, didn't we? Yep, we've not missed anything. Right, so let me know. That is a long video. That's 40 minutes of patch notes. Wowzers. I'm going to get out of here. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, agents. Goodbye.